What if I told you that poor tapping isn't about your fingers, it's actually about your technique? Well, after years of helping hundreds of guitarists learn math rock finger tapping technique, I've pinpointed 7 common mistakes holding players back. To start, we have our first problem, and it's one of the biggest issues I see in those I've helped, and it goes like this. Imagine you try to run a marathon without proper training. You burst off the starting line at full speed, confident you can power through, but within minutes you're gasping for air and your legs turn to jelly and you realize you're not ready. Finger tapping works the same way. If you dive straight into the advanced part, all of these advanced techniques, without building a solid foundation first, your hands will struggle to keep up. But what's the solution? Well, the best approach I've found is to start with the fundamental exercises slowly and carefully. Here's a killer exercise that you can use right now to get started. Tap a single note on the 12th fret using your middle finger on the E string and aim to get the same volume with each tap. Next, we're going to add a pull off. So you're going to tap onto the 12th and then you're going to pull off to the 8th. And you can use the tip of your index finger here to mute this B string to stop it ringing like this. And lastly, we're going to add a hammer on from this 8th fret. So you're going to tap the 12th, pull off, and then hammer on from there with your ring finger. And you're going to do that 1, 2, 3 motion over and over again. And of course, you'll want to use a metronome for this, but I'm just demonstrating it in the video for you. Which brings us on to another common mistake I see guitarists make when learning finger tapping. Let me ask you, what's the biggest difference between these 2 examples? This one and this one. You might not hear much difference in tone, but you'll feel a huge difference in how comfortable it is to play that part. And it's all just about adjusting your wrist position. So where exactly should your wrists be? Well, let me show you the ideal wrist placement for better control and a consistent, clean tapping sound. First, you're going to anchor your thumb on the side of the neck for stability. And you're going to bring your wrist, instead of like this, where it's like a 90-degree angle or whatever it is, we're going to bring it round so it's more in line with the fretboard. And now you're going to use this hand to mute and you're going to tap the 12th fret on the A string using your index finger, and then use your middle finger for the 10th on the D string, then your middle again on the 12th on the G string, and then on the B string use your ring finger. To make this exercise more musical, you could add this F major 9 chord and you could tap and pull off and let these notes ring underneath. Now I'm going to show you how to do the exact same thing, but for your other hand. Again, what do you notice between these 2 examples? This one and this one. Well, having your fingers, your wrist coming over and bent over the fretboard puts a lot of unnecessary strain on your wrist, and it also makes it much harder to tap the notes. And you're going to get a lot of ringing strings because you're not muting as well. And this is a big reason why a lot of guitarists can't get a lot of volume out of their taps. But how do you make sure you are getting the correct angle? Well, let me show you so you can get it correct from the get-go, or you can correct whatever you've been developing so far. So you'll want to anchor your thumb on the back of the neck here, and then you're going to bring your hand, instead of having it at an angle like this, you're going to try and bring it straight on with the fretboard. The next thing you'll want to do is to make sure that your knuckles here are not too far above the fretboard, and that's when you start getting this awkward angle. So instead, bring your knuckles back so they're in line with the top part of the fretboard here, and that your wrist is more straight, and then you'll find it's much easier to get control over your taps versus, and it also means you can mute more effectively using the underside of your index finger because it's not awkwardly in the air like that. So now that your two-hand tapping is stronger, let me help you avoid another common mistake. When I first learned to finger tap, I cranked up the distortion on my zoom pedal on the metal setting, of course, and it made tapping feel effortless and it hid all of my sloppy mistakes. But reality hit hard one night mid-gig when the pedal died right before this little tricky tapping part that I was experimenting writing. And even though through the loud amp that I was playing through, the part just sounded weak and messy. The painful embarrassment taught me a valuable lesson. Never rely on your gear to hide poor technique. So this could be things like overdrive, distortion, compression and stuff. Instead, we want to build real strength. But how do you do that? Well, here's a killer exercise to get you started. So for this exercise, we're going to work on strength and consistency for both of our hands. We're going to start from the 5th fret here and we're going to tap with our index finger from nowhere. And then we're going to use our ring finger on the 7th fret. And then in between that, we're going to put our middle finger. And then to top it off, we're going to use our little finger to tap that last fret. And again, you want to try and keep your knuckles in line with the fretboard here. After, you're going to repeat the same pattern again, but between the 9th and 12th fret with this hand instead. So again, index, then your little ring finger, then middle finger, and then tap on the 12th. And for me, I've got a pretty weak little finger here, so I like to put the my ring finger on top here for a bit of tap and stability. And I don't use it that much when I tap, but it's a good habit to get into developing. And then put the two together. Now we've got that covered, let me show you how to get your tapping licks sounding cleaner than ever before. So listen carefully to these two examples, and what's the biggest difference between the two? Hear the difference? One sounds messy and rather noisy, while the other sounds a lot more tight and a lot more clean. So if your tapping sounds messy, it's usually because unwanted strings keep ringing out, muddying up your playing as you're doing a tapping riff. This extra noise happens when your hands aren't effectively muting the strings, letting vibrations spill over. So what's the secret to effective muting? Well, here's a simple exercise I love using with my students that'll get your tapping sounding much cleaner right away. So a lot of muting can be done with the underside of your index finger for anything that's below your tap, and anything that's above your tap, you can use the tip of your index finger here to rest against the string. Or if there's a few strings, you could actually use the palm of your hand to rest here. And here's a good exercise to practice. For this hand, you're going to tap the 7th fret on the A using your index, 7 again using your middle finger on the G, and then 7 again on the E string, like that. And your other hand is going to do this repeating pattern in between. And as you come across, you can mute with the underside of your finger. And here as well, you can use your palm to take care of these top strings. And again, your underside of your index to make sure nothing's ringing there. And then come over to the last bit, and you can see I'm bringing my palm across to tap that last part there. I don't expect you to get it perfect right away, so obviously this is something we're going to practice. And if it's too difficult up here, you could try it higher up. If that's more comfortable for you. Which brings us on to our final problem. How do you know which notes to use when tapping? Well, let me share a quick, straightforward method so you can write killer tapping parts fast. Many guitarists I've met overcomplicate the process of tapping. They jump straight into complex patterns, try to write blazing fast riffs, or think they need a ton of music theory knowledge. I know, I've been this person. But honestly, it's more like making a sandwich. You start with the bread, add a solid filling, and perhaps then add 1 or 2 extra flavors. It's balanced, easy to assemble, and most importantly, delicious. Finger tapping works the exact same way. Instead of overloading your riff with too many notes from the start, begin with something clear and manageable, a basic chord shape or a short riff motif, for example, and then build up from there. But how exactly do you do this? Well, let me show you one of my favorite methods, the same one I've used to write countless tapping riffs, and I also use it to write the riff that you heard in the introduction to this video. So first, choose a chord, for example, a C major 9 chord, or we could just say a C major chord. From there, you'll want to work out the 3rd and 5th of that chord. So that's pretty easy to work out. That's the major 3rd, and we're going to play that on the same string here. And then the 5th is here, but on this string it's going to be here, right? So we got the 3rd and 5th there. We're going to play the C major chord. From this 3rd and 5th, we're going to build that chord shape that's in the key. So for example, from our 3rd degree, this is going to be an E minor chord. And for our 5th, this is going to be a G major chord. And what you can do is hold this chord. You can tap those other chord shapes. And they will fit nicely with the chords, so it's a really quick way to start coming up with ideas. And then what I like to do is add some spices to the sandwich. So we've got the bread, we've got a good filling, so now we can add those extra spices by going around the chord shape and finding slides and stuff that we can use. And it's a really simple process. If you just use your ear, you'll hear what notes fit around these chords. So we've got the E minor chord. So if I do, that chord sounds out right, that note, sorry. So I'm already coming up with an idea there. And then down here. And again, I'm already coming up with ideas there just by going around those chord shapes. And the great thing is, if you just move a chord shape in the key, you just apply the same process. So for our C major, you know, the 3rd and 5th are there. If we went to the next chord in the key, played a D minor, same process. The 3rd and the 5th. And then I know I could play this F major chord built from the minor 3rd. So I could do and that's a killer way you can start writing melodic ideas around your tapping. The thing is, even though now you know how to fix many of the common finger tapping problems, there's another crucial thing you need to master in order to take your finger tapping skills to the next level. So watch this video next where I'll show you how to perfect your math rock finger tapping skills. Thanks for watching, and a big thanks to the patron, and see you in the next video. Goodbye.